Hello, and today's a little bit of a different video. So today I want to talk about The Walking Dead and why it sucks, because I feel like The Walking Dead's been going downhill for a really long time. Like, it had that peak in season 9, which is one of my favourite seasons, but other than season 9, since season 5, in my opinion, The Walking Dead has just been TV that is kind of, you watch because you put time and effort into the first 5 seasons. So today I want to kind of break down why I think The Walking Dead sucks and why it's just getting worse and worse as we move deeper into the final season. I'm having some real issues watching this show at this point, and I want to kind of break down why I think it sucks and tell you this little kind of discussion / essay video, my 5 big things that really grind me about The Walking Dead and why I think the show is just kind of bad at this moment in time. And the first thing I do want to talk about is that I think my number one point is I think the show diverted too much from the source material, and there is nothing like the comics. And I think that to make a show good, and if it's an adaptation, it should be some sort loyal to the adaptation that it's adapting the source material. And The Walking Dead's adaptation is like whenever a movie tries to adapt a game, it's just night and day. Like, the adaptation of The Walking Dead is just so bad in my opinion, just because it shares very little with what made the source material great. Like, the only thing that's same between the two things is the arcs and the villains, more and less. But all the characters are completely different. Like, the show kind of relies on show exclusive characters to run the show, or relies on characters that have outlived their comic counterparts to the point they're completely different characters. And I think if The Walking Dead was ever going to get like kind of a second rewrite or something, or a couple decades in the future, someone goes, hey, let's remake The Walking Dead for nowadays, I think the way to make the show better and make sure it doesn't suck is stick closer to the adaptation, follow the story of the comics closer, and especially in the weaker parts of the comics, change and adapt that bit better, instead of adapting the good parts of the comics to be worse. Like, the Reaper arc sucks because it's not part of the comics. They can't write very well when they're not doing the comics. They can't do a Game of Thrones, but they have the source material they could rely off of, and they're like, no, we're going to do a Game of Thrones, we're going to come up with our own stuff, even though the end of the source material was right there. But no, we're going to do our own stuff. I don't understand that they want to make the show different, but the point is, they've adapted it so differently. You could change the name and they'd be like, oh, okay, it's just a completely different Walker show, a zombie show, and it has some similarities to the Walking Dead comics, but they're completely different. The characters are different. It just annoys me how different it is to the source material. I'm one of those people who like stuff to be like, bam, almost a 1-for-1. I really like stuff like that. And I'm quite excited for The Last of Us TV show, because that apparently is adapting the game almost 1-for-1, but adding a few bits in to kind of make it more TV-like. I'm excited for that, because that's going to be a very good adaptation. I just think The Walking Dead kind of, especially with season 3, kind of went off the rails of the adaptation, because the showrunners, especially the one from season 3 and Scott Gimple, they didn't care too much about the comics. They didn't read the comics, especially the season 3 one. He admitted to not reading the comics at all and killed Andrew because it was for shock value. And Scott Gimple doesn't care about the comics at all, which means he just kind of did his own story. He stretched out the Savior arc because he wanted to. He did all this. He killed characters off because he wanted to. He didn't look at the adaptation and be like, okay, this happens. He just did his own thing. Like, it's kind of been fixed slightly with Anja Chang, who is a massive, comic fan. She admitted it, and you can see that she's kind of made it slightly more like the comics, but she has none of the characters to do that with. And that's my first big issue, how different it is to the source material. It's like night and day, and that's issue 1 of why the show sucks in my opinion. The second reason why Walking Dead sucks now in my opinion is there have been too many deaths, and a lot of these deaths are of the wrong type of character. Like, if you look at The Walking Dead season 1 to season 11, only 2 characters have made it through all 11 seasons, and those 2 characters that made it were not even main characters in season 1. Daryl and Carol and Norman Reedus and Melissa McBride were both guest stars in season 1. They were made main cast in season 2. So really, if you want to be like kind of very specific, the original cast is completely dead. Only people who are main cast from season 2 onwards are in the show, okay? And that really sucks. They killed off too many characters. Like, a lot of fan-loved characters have been killed off, and they keep around a lot of characters that no one likes because they put all their development into all these fan-loved characters, these loved characters, and then they kill them off for shock value or some stupid reason. And then you're left with the characters that no one likes. Like, look at The Walking Dead now. I couldn't name somebody I really like who is not from the first half of The Walking Dead. Okay, the only, like, kind of different one, or the only outlier is Negan. But other than Negan, everyone else, from season 6 onwards, I kind of don't care about. I'm like, oh, look, it's Magna. Oh, look, it's Connie. Like, I like Connie, but she doesn't have the same impact. It's just, they kill off the wrong characters. I feel like they should have, if they were going to kill off characters, they should have been killing off lesser characters instead of always killing off the big characters, the big names. Because that means The Walking Dead has now been left with basically 2 big names, which is Daryl and Carol, and a lot of small names. I don't count Maggie as a kind of a big name because she left the show and came back, so I always see her now as this newer character because she's completely different to where she was in season 9. And it's just, The Walking Dead, in my opinion, killed off too many of the good characters and left all their bad characters to run the show. The characters that are still around are just weak characters. All the good characters have been killed off. Like, if you look at Fear, I can think Fear has done some things better than The Walking Dead, and it's one of the reasons why I think Fear is the strongest show right now, is that it keeps its good characters around. Like, it does kill them off, but some of its good characters, like Strand and Alicia, they may be sidelined quite a lot. However, they make sure to always keep them alive, and when they do eventually kill off a fan-loved character, you still have all those other fan-loved characters, so you know they can never die. And The Walking Dead kind of goes like, oh, you're a fan-loved character, we'll eventually kill you unless you're called Daryl and Carol, or you're going to a spin-off, of course. And that just really annoys me, how the show is just killing off the wrong characters, and we're just stuck with terrible characters that have no character development. My third issue with The Walking Dead is that The Walking Dead is no longer about telling the story. And especially with these last 2 seasons, The Walking Dead is about setting up spin-offs. And I think the final episode of The Walking Dead is going to be terrible because it's just going to serve a spin-off instead of being an ending to the story that we had for like 12 years. And it's a really big issue that we have all these spin-offs confirmed. It takes away from The Walking Dead, like, oh, Carol and Daryl get the spin-off after The Walking Dead ends. Great, so we know that the 2 basically main characters of the show can't die in a show that's about any character can die. Yes, that works totally fine. And it's annoying how a lot of characters, instead of just dying when they leave the show, they leave to go do spin-offs. They leave to go, oh, okay, we're going to go do a spin-off. And it's mostly Scott Gimple's fault, because he got promoted to the point where he could basically be like, okay, we're going to use The Walking Dead as a flagship to build a universe instead of telling a story. And it's more about the IP than the story at this point. And that really sucks, because you can tell on The Walking Dead, a lot of characters have been removed from the show, or have been confirmed to survive, and it kind of takes away from the show. You're like, okay, they're going to a spin-off, goodbye. Goodbye, Dwight, you were a cool character to see. It would have been cool to see you get your comic death, but no, goodbye. You're going to Fear. Oh, goodbye, Morgan. I really liked you on The Walking Dead. Goodbye, you're going to Fear. And then, oh, goodbye, Michonne. You're going off to go to the movies. Oh, Rick's been taken to the movies. A lot of characters are just being taken out of the show to the detriment of The Walking Dead for spin-offs. And it really takes away from the show and removes what was great about the show, which is the characters, because all the good characters have been already taken out of the show so they can go to other things. It's really stupid. The next biggest issue to why The Walking Dead sucks now, in my opinion, and is just getting worse and worse as we go on, is the writers. It is bad. The writing for this show is not good. It relies too much on kind of tried and tested methods. It's not about making good TV. It's about, okay, we want to get this out here. We need 16 episodes. And I feel like that 16 episodes would have been shortened. It would be better if it was 10 episodes. But no, The Walking Dead's like, hey, we're going to go for the format of 16, and in that 16 we're going to have 4 big episodes. The others are just kind of filler and like build up. So the only big episodes, the only episodes that really matter each season is episode 1, episode 8, episode 9, and episode 16. The 4 big episodes. And some of the reasons why other shows were great, like Game of Thrones, it didn't have this format. It was like every episode is important to the story, but The Walking Dead relies on these 4 episodes being literally the big moments. And you know, big things always happen in these 4 episodes, and it gets rid of the tension, because you're like, oh, episode 8's coming up, someone's going to die because it's episode 8. You're like, come on. And it's getting worse as we go through the seasons, because now it's no longer this 4, it's now turned into only 3, because they're either doing 1, 8, or 9. It's not both of them now. It's either one or the other. Probably 9, like especially if you look at season 11. 9's the big one. 8 is just build up, like 7 is build up, and then 16. And then you're like, okay, so now we've gone from 4 big build episodes, so we build up for these 4 episodes to have everything in it, to only 3. And this kind of formatted approach that the Walking Dead writers have done to the show really ruins the pacing of the show, and really just makes episodes 3, 4, 5, and 11, 12, and 13 just feel like filler, because nothing's going to happen in those 3 episodes. They're mid-season episodes. Nothing happens. And it really sucks how, to fix this, all they had to do was shorten the length of the season and focus on every episode being important and move the story forwards. But no, they focus on only 4 episodes kind of moving the story forwards, the season being too long, and they don't have enough money to do 16 episodes of good stuff. So what do? Bottle episodes to increase the length. Like the episode Still from season 4. That's when The Walking Dead stood still, because guess what? It's a bottle episode. They're like, oh, okay, we spent all our budget. We don't have any budget for this episode. What do we do? Well, we can't shorten the length of the season because, that's common sense. How about we do a whole hour of Daryl and Beth kind of doing nothing and standing still? And it's just annoying. Like, the writers could simply fix some of this stuff by changing the format and lowering the episode count. The writers are quite incompetent, in my opinion. It does ruin the show, because another way to show how incompetent the writers are, it's how they focus on shock over story, like especially with deaths. They're like, okay, we're going to do a death, but oh wait, we're going to fake it out. Like, especially Angela Chang, I noticed she does it quite a lot, and especially in the Reaper arc, she loves doing fake out deaths. And when a death does happen, she likes to take a sweet time of it, like the fair. That's a great episode, but they do take a really long time to try and like convince on. It's a pretty good build up, but I feel like looking back at it retrospectively, there was a big fake out with like really big characters, just to have it to be kind of these smaller characters that only a few characters care about. Like, I really cared about like Henry stuff, but he's a small character, and Anna Chang really built it up to be like, oh, it's a big thing, but really, if you didn't like any of those characters, it wasn't really a big thing. Like, everyone that was killed on the spikes weren't really big characters. And another thing Angela Tang did, which is really big, like, she is prone to doing fake out deaths. Look at the end of the Whisperer arc, episode 10-16, 3 fake out deaths, and all 3 were so bad. Like, Gabriel fake out, Carol fake out, like, you had all these deaths kind of foreshadowed, and you're about to get the comic deaths of like Gabriel's comic death. You're about to have like even Negan versus Beta, and you're gonna have Carol do Andrea's comic death. No, all faked out, all didn't happen, all just kind of ruined. And I feel like that kind of ruins the show if you rely on the shock of a fake out death more than the actual story that you're telling. And if you take away those fake out deaths, guess what? You have a bad show if you're relying on that. And that kind of really annoys me, how The Walking Dead has just kind of been this show where you just be like, oh, is this character going to die or not? And they don't. And a lot of time it's just a character you don't care about who dies. And it kind of really annoys me. And talking about The Walking Dead not being good at writing characters and deaths, the dialogue and the decisions sometimes in this show is just absolutely borderline stupid. Because The Walking Dead's like, hey, we got to have this situation happen, and they just kind of make the character be super dumb to make it happen, like especially with Carol in the Whisperer arc. How did Anne Chang think about, okay, we need to make the Whisperer arc like happen? How are we going to happen? Because we kind of had it like end with this during the fair, like, no, we're not going to look at the comics and how it happened in the comics. No, we are going to have Carol just be a revengeful person and goes out way and kills almost everyone and ruins everything. Yes, we have a character who's built like this. We're going to completely change their like the way the character was from season 9 to 10 and make him this absolute like a just bad person. And you're like, okay, Carol, you're basically worse than Alpha at this point. I just don't like how the writers change basically the IQ of each of the characters whenever they're writing. It's really annoying how sometimes the dialogue's a bit clunky, and just characters make the stupidest decisions because the writers want to have this situation happen, but they don't know how to get there in a smart and entertaining way. So what they're going to do, make the character be stupid so it happens anyway, and it really annoys me. Like, did they go over to Fee and be like, look at the writers, they're making their characters borderline like window lickers. We need to do that on The Walking Dead to make these situations happen. That's what I feel like happens sometimes on The Walking Dead. They look over what Fear's doing, and they're like, that's how you make character decisions. And they go back to The Walking Dead, and they do it, and you're like, no, you shouldn't. You don't look at Fear as an example with character decisions, because that's stupid. But it's just so annoying with character decisions in the show just being really bad, because the writers don't know how to write properly. My final issue with The Walking Dead is that the cast is too big, and it really ruins the show in my opinion and bogs it down, because there are too many characters in the show, which means not the right characters get enough screen time. Like, think about it, like Daryl, it's meant to be his show, but however, because they have such a big cast, they give it to all these other characters, and Daryl doesn't even get his own spotlight in his own show. Especially season 11, looking at me, did basically nothing. It focused on other characters like no one cared about, and it really annoys me how the cast is so big, the protagonist of the show can't even be the protagonist of his own show. And because the cast is so big, a lot of characters do nothing. You don't learn everyone's names. I didn't learn Alder's names till season 11. He's been in the show since season 8. It's just, they have too many characters, and they don't know what to do with them, and a lot of them don't add to the show, and it makes the show just feel bloated. It makes you not care about any of the characters when characters you like die. Oh, you have half a dozen other characters that you just barely know the name of and you don't care about, and they're going to take the role of that character who just died. Yay, TV, The Walking Dead. It just ruins the show in my opinion. And the way to fix this, cut down on the cast. Have a smaller group of people. And in the comics, they had a big group of characters. However, in arcs, they focus on smaller groups of those people. Like, especially the Commonwealth arc, that was tightly group focused on characters like Dwight, Rick, and stuff like that. And characters like Carl, he was in it, however, he kind of tapered off, did his own thing, wasn't part of the Commonwealth arc, and he came in at the end. But the show is not going to have characters, when they like kind of go off and do their own thing, they kind of never come back and never kind of just add to the story. They're kind of just there and could be like named background character. It's just a problem with the show. The cast is too big. You don't care about anyone because how big it is. And those are my points for why The Walking Dead sucks. I just feel like these are the things that really ruin the show for me. And if the writers or The Walking Dead or AMC or whatever looks at this and we're like, okay, we need to fix these 5 things, I feel the show would be so much better and it would be a great show. But no, these have been like recurring issues since a really long time, like about since the end of season 5, season 6 onwards. These have been recurring issues on The Walking Dead that really like dragged the show down and ruined it, for my opinion. But what do you think? Do you agree with my points? Do you think they're valid? Do you think they make sense? Or have I just been talking gibberish for almost 20 minutes? Please tell me down below. And if you want to subscribe, feel free to for more Walking Dead content. And look on the screen for more videos. I recommend you do it, because guess what? You'll find something else you like. But this is it for me today, and I'll see you later. So goodbye, peace out, talk to you later.